All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kay Fredericks from ABC 15 alongside our data guru, Garrett Archer, for Inside the Arizona Coronavirus Numbers, our daily show. I'm filling in for my friend and colleague, Katie Rammel, who is off today. So bear with me if I don't do it exactly as you're used to. So I will try my best, though. And I know, Garrett, you're going to take care of me today.
Hi, Faye. Thanks for coming in and helping us out today. Yay.
So, hey, listen, I hear that we have some interesting new numbers from Pima County specifically, but if I said, just give me kind of a headline, where are we on this Monday afternoon?
Well, Mondays are always sort of a low reporting day. So if I was going to say headline, I would say we're looking at an uptick, and hospitals are sort of uptick as well. Slight uptick. That's sort of the headline I'd go with today.
Okay, so let me start statewide and the percent of positive cases that we have coming back right now. What does that look like, and give us a little frame of reference on where it's been.
So today, the number of new cases reported is only 360, with only one new death. Those are very low numbers. So, and of course, those are great numbers as far as their size. However, we have to put them into context with, like, say, for example, the last several Mondays. This is the highest Monday report since about, I want to say, the middle of September, sort of getting into early August. Yeah, about, I want to say 9. Yeah, sorry, I'm looking through as I'm doing this, and since before Labor Day, this is the highest Monday report we've had for a while. So we're looking at sort of upticks, small upticks. This has a lot to do with the testing. Our testing has gone up a little bit as well because of the antigen tests, but all in all, still increasing cases. It's impacting our RT number and all these other things. So
yeah, so let's talk about that RT number for a moment. That's one of those critical numbers that we like to watch very carefully.
Yes. So as anybody who's been tracking the RT, we know that we've looked at it over the weekend. I try to put it out every Monday, or excuse me, every morning on Twitter. I like to put it out. I will use the RT.live for this particular day. But just remember, with the RT, the interesting thing about this is that once the day sort of passes, that previous day's RT is no longer relevant. So I know some people will sometimes look at me and say, like, say, for example, today's Arizona RT is 1.01, and it was 1.04 or 1.05 a couple days ago. And someone will say, well, you reported this as 1.04 a couple days ago. And because the way that this is calculated, because it's done the entire rate over time, yesterday's RT is just not important. It's just the way that this estimate is done. So today's is 1.01. That's where it presumes we are at this very moment. And because we're getting data and tests coming in with very little lag, that's probably one of the better estimates that we've had in a long time. This RT has been, if you've been watching it, 1.04, 1.03, sometimes under 1 in the last week or so. And I think that's probably pretty correct of where we are. We seem to be very leveled off in everything. The hospitalizations, the test and case numbers, everything's very level right now.
Right. And a 1 is always the kind of like the significant barometer. Explain why that is.
So yes, you don't want to be over 1. So when we say 1.01, what that means is that if 100 people have COVID-19, they could spread it to 101 people. Obviously, that's a very, very slow transmission rate, an increase. However, it is still an increase. Right. So, we don't want to see it, of course, up in the 2.5 range where, 100 people can give it to 240 people. That's when things get really scary. But what this RT means when it's over 1 is simply that the presence of the virus is growing.
Right.
It could be growing very, very slow. And we have information from Joe Girard, who does a lot of stuff at University of Arizona and other places as well, that all agree that there are increases going on, but they're very slight right now. So that's sort of just where we are. It's just slight increases.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about, we talked a little, mentioned Pima County, because I saw you tweeted out earlier that they have some interesting numbers coming in. They're putting out a lot more data, right?
Yeah, so Pima County, so all the counties, let me just back up really quick before I talk about Pima County. All the counties report independently of the AZ Department of Health Services. In fact, Pima County, however, was the only one to stop reporting in April of 2020. Sorry, I forget where and when we are in this world.
Yeah.
In April, they stopped reporting independently and just relied on the AZDHS's numbers. And what we have now is they finally started doing some independent reporting, and the dashboard that they put out today is pretty tremendous. And I do want to share it with you. Let's just go here, and I'll tell you why that this is a pretty tremendous dashboard. And those people that are from Pima County, I definitely would suggest you go and check this thing out. I'm going to really quick, before I go into this, I'm just going to pull up a I'm going to pull up the website that our producer Carrie, can put in there so you guys can see what it is. Right there, that's where you get to this dashboard, and it's the Pima County data dashboard right there. And so let's just go over it really quick. What this is this is called a spatial dashboard. So it gives you the colors of what everything looks like in different jurisdictions, different boundaries, zip code, census tract, jurisdiction, and school district. Jurisdiction being cities: Marana, Oro Valley, Tucson, Sahuarita, school districts, and zip code. And then as well as census tract. And you can click on any one of these and it'll give you some information on it. I'm going to focus right now on census tracts because this is by far the most interesting of all of these.
Okay.
Go ahead, Pay. Sorry.
No, I'm listening.
Oh. So census tract is by far the most interesting of all of these because census tracts are really proportional. So the population, they try to keep it as even as possible from census tract to census tract. Unlike zip codes, unlike obviously city boundaries and some of these other things, census tracts gives us a really good idea of what that really intrinsic community spread is. And what I find interesting, I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to focus on one specific census tract. You can see as things get dark, you can see there's one census tract right here in sort of this dark purple, and it's census tract 5. And you can look at all this information. You can go on by date. You can do cumulative by date. Very interesting stuff. I'm actually going to have to, let's see how I can, this is being not as good as it was. What is going on here? Did they hide something? Hold on a second. There we go. Okay, thank you. It took me, this is a brand new thing for me too, so it took me a second to remember how to use it. If you click that little button there, it'll give you the data for that census tract. And so what it shows, the Chiron is on top of it, or the lower third, but right here you see deaths by date. I'll pop this in right here. Or excuse me, cases by date. This is the cases, this is the epi curve for that census tract, and which is incredible. It can show how there's really been an explosion of cases in this particular census tract in September. So August to September. What we've been watching in Pima County the last couple of weeks, we've been watching this area thinking, Pima County seeing the growth. Now, as we go in really quick, we can see, I mean, I'm sure people who live here or know this area already know what I'm getting at here. Here we go.
Yep.
Yeah, it's University of Arizona. So this census tract is fully encompassing the University of Arizona and really shows what University of Arizona's numbers have done to Pima County. And it's very interesting. You can see its cases by age, 1,217 cases in that 0 to 19 range, and then 648 cases from the 45 to 60, or excuse me, the 20 to 44 range. And those are the only cases. So they only have, they have a little less than 2,000 cases, and it's all under 45.
Yeah, and it's interesting too to see the surrounding tracts,
yes,
how it's impacting that as well.
Yeah, and that's also very interesting, is exactly how the surrounding, the farther you get away from University of Arizona, even in that zip code, right, sorry, I'm just going to zip code really quick because you can see that zip code is this 85719, zip code right here. But the farther you get away from that zip code, the less impact and the less cases you see. I mean, there's almost no cases in this census tract right here. This 45.1. There's only, I think, over cumulative time, there only seems to be, it's getting 1 or 2 cases every once in a while. So it's just very interesting to see that. And you can see of these census tracts, there are 3 in particular that are causing, are showing very large increases. It's this one right here, where you have 941, and they were all essentially picked out in late July. And I'm not really sure what this is. I'm sure someone who lives in Pima would know better. It
Yeah.
appears to me to be a prison, but I'm not 100% sure.
Right. So obviously we know, there have been outbreaks among prison populations. I know,
Yes.
we talk hospitals sometimes. And by the way, I wanted to thank Debbie for weighing in there. It is a very cool tool. She mentioned that there on our chat. And is this a tool that other counties are now rolling out as well?
No, this is so Maricopa County has had something very close to this. They don't give us census data, census tract data, but they give us something very similar on the zip codes. That's the thing we play with a lot, and we'll show it again today, where we get a lot of information on a weekly basis by zip code. But no, Pima County is the only one to take us down to the census level. Now, we've always known that we can get this data at the census level because I know this data is all aggregated from a healthcare sort of billing system, but Pima is the only one to actually give us this data. So major props to Pima for giving us really a good idea of the granularity of what this what the pandemic looks like in Pima County, that even goes beyond just zip codes. I mean, we really can drill down pretty aggressively here. So major props to them.
Wonderful tool, especially if
Yeah.
you live in the county and you want to see exactly what's happening, like right down to your neighborhood, frankly. So question coming in, how about Flagstaff? Because we were talking about U of A down there, what's going on up in Coconino County in the area around NAU?
So what I can tell you, while I don't have in front of me an aggregating map, I will bring us back to the AZDHS's. Well, wait, wasn't there? Hold on a second. I'm thinking for a second. There was one more. I think it was Cochise. Now I remember we were talking last week, and there was one county that did a tremendous job of actually aggregating the zip codes, and now I can't remember which one it is. Yeah, it was.
Sure it'll come to you. It'll come.
Yeah,
to you.
it was a zip code map, and it was the first time I had seen it. We were talking on this thing, Katie and I, and we came up on this zip code map. It's like, oh wow, this is better than anything we've seen yet from any of the counties, from the outer counties, and I can't remember which one it is right now. So I'll try to remember that one. In the meantime, I will go to the standard AZDHS zip code map, which will show us what things look like in Flagstaff. And yes, the answer is that same thing has been happening in Flagstaff. I don't really have enough data to show how it's been happening, but you can see the case count at 86001, which has been sort of in the top 10 zip codes for case increases for the last weeks or so. This is up to 949 now. And you see that the interesting thing about zip codes out here, of course, is that it's just two zip codes that basically split Flagstaff down the middle. And NAU is, I believe NAU is right here. I think it's right here. I can't remember. I think NAU is right here, but you can see it's sort of really close to the zip code line. So NAU will definitely be impacting both of these zip codes.
Yeah, you got to figure a lot of students and also employees at the university, maybe
Yes.
they work in one zip code, but they live, across the street or a half mile away or something, and they're in the other zip code. So crossover, if you will, again.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be crossover, but that area has been showing up on the top 10 growth of zip codes for the past week or so, is that 86001. We're seeing, in fact, 85719 NAUs, 86001, and then we have unfortunately, some tribal zip codes that are there too. We don't get the actual tribal zip codes themselves, but we have adjacent zip codes. It was Mesa. Thank you, Kristen. It was absolutely Mesa's COVID site that did that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. I knew it was one thing, and all these Esri sites can start to look the same, and I forgot which one it is. So I'll try to see if I can get that Mesa site up and running and show you what that looked like. But yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Garrett, while we're talking about the schools, why don't we circle around to ASU and we're kind of touching bases on all the schools and how the zip codes around the schools are doing.
Yes, let's do that next. Absolutely. I'm going to see if I can get this Mesa one up because it had such a great zip code map. I've got it going right here. COVID-19 city updates. Sorry about that. Daily new cases, COVID. Here it is. Here it is. Yes. So thank you very much. I'm going to share this screen. And we're going to go to zip codes right here. This is from the city of Mesa, by the way, everybody. This is what we were talking about. And this is sort of what we're looking at. Sorry, what it's doing is it's re-rendering here. And here is 85281. This is ASU's. And you can see that in the past, the case count around ASU right now is about 2,773. That's with a confirmed case rate of, it looks like 4,200. And then the new cases right now is only 5, though. So that's good. It's actually not picking up as many cases on a daily basis than it has been. That new cases is that day. So it's today's cases. And really 5 is great, because there are sometimes it's, you know, sometimes it's 100 in that particular zip code. So very, very good stuff today in ASU.
Great. That's great, because I know the schools have been, and the areas around the schools have been a big concern for a while now, that you know, whether it's just having a whole bunch of people living in close proximity to another, or sometimes it's behavior that has to do with it, that you know, anything around the universities has kind of been a problem spot at times when you look at the state as a whole.
Yeah, they've really been driving the growth. When we're looking at these RT numbers that are above 1, it's really coming a lot from a combination of the universities and the congregate prison settings. Now, the prisons, you know, I know some people argue, well, the prisons shouldn't be added to the zip code map, but you know, there are people that transit through the jails and the prisons, so you can't really just cut them off and say, well, they can't count. You know, it's just the way it is. If a prison is in a zip code, it's going to count for those numbers. The worst area in Maricopa right now that's a great question. I think, let me see, where's my school map? Really, there's Maricopa's doing really well right now. There's not a whole lot of really bad areas. If I had to say, I would say the Salt River Pima region, just in the reservation, things could be better there. And also sort of that south, even though this is sort of going away to an extent, that southwest portion of Phoenix has been hit really hard. And there's still some residual case, you know, information in that southwest portion of Phoenix. It is getting much better, though. That's the good thing.
Right. Overall, Garrett, would you say Maricopa trending in a positive direction now?
Yeah, I would say as of right now, Maricopa County is trending in a positive direction. Let me bring back the ACDHS site, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We'll go county by county, especially the counties that had a problem. So we're just literally going to look at the cases by day, and then we're going to move it to by week. So now we're just looking at the cases by week, and so the line gets a little easier to understand. You can sort of see, you know, where we've had our increases and the downgrades, the slopes going down. And you can see right here, Maricopa County, you can see there was a 3-week increase that went to September 20th. That brought us to about 2,000 cases. And now on the week of September 27th, which realistically now there's pretty much enough data to know that that's not going to change all that much. Maybe one more day of increases in that column, and you can see it's not gone up really. September 27th, it's right now it's below where it was on the 20th, and while it may increase, it's not going to increase by a whole lot. It's going to be, this is what I'm talking about with this RT being under 1, or a little above 1, a little under 1. Now let's go to Pima. Pima is an interesting case because you can see September 27th and the 20th, you can see its cases have just dropped like a rock as they, you know, they did this is the university testing, and then things just started to go back down because they were done with the university testing. Coconino, same exact thing, just a week later. You can see this last week, September 27th, it's less than half of what it was for these weeks. And then, you know, all of the other counties are sort of following a similar pattern in some cases. The number of tests are decreasing at this very moment. They were increasing last week, and they're starting to decrease a tiny bit. But again, this is a pretty nominal amount of decreases. It's not like they're dropping. But you can see the other counties, with the exception of the counties that have heavy presence, and there is actually an explanation for this county. This is Gila County. We actually, I believe we covered this story. There was a long-term care facility that was hit really hard in Gila County. And you can see that right there in these numbers. But aside from that, most of these numbers are following a pretty standard pattern. If a college exists there, the numbers went up from the week of the 27th. If it doesn't exist, the numbers are still going down.
Yeah. Can you talk about a little bit about kind of the testing protocols that the colleges have put in place, and how long they're going to continue to do the intensive testing that they've been doing?
So my understanding is that they're relying now on antigen testing, right? And I think it appears, just based on the data, that they've done the majority of their batch testing. So now they're just doing sort of maintenance testing at this point. And so I think that's the protocol, is now they're just doing, they're doing spot testing here and there throughout the university, but they pretty much, it seems, they've covered their entire student body at this point. And they are using, I believe they are all using the antigen testing, those rapid saliva-based tests. And that way, the benefit of those tests is that A, there's no false negative, and B, you can test someone, you can know where they are in their viral load, and it's much, because they're not as strong as the PCRs, you kind of get a better idea of where they are in the front of it to the back of it, and you can sort of trace the direction of the infection much better than the PCR test, simply because it takes longer for the PCR test to get back, so you never know where they are. So it's just, especially for this under 25 demographic, it's better to do this sort of rapid testing.
Yeah, certainly. I think it gives you definitely a better picture, a more current picture of what's going on, as opposed to, the test took 8 days or something in some cases to get back. I know they've really sped that up, but it was very slow for a while, as we all know. Maggie here, any news on the state taking new steps toward opening?
Well,
heard anything on that, or any benchmarks
last week, if you remember, Maggie, I don't know if you were listening last week, but last week the Arizona Department of Health Services sort of clarified what it would mean to go, if a county was to go back into the substantial category, what it would take for it to sort of go back in an opposite direction. And what they determined is that all of those gated criteria that we watch every day, the PCR the positivity rate, the cases per 100, the per capita cases, as well as the COVID-like illness syndromic surveillance, they would all have to go up above into the substantial category in order for a county to be given, to be reassigned to substantial. And so we're not seeing that. In fact, especially with the COVID-like illness data, we don't have any county that's even remotely close to getting into substantial with the COVID-like illness data at this point. So it appears that the steps towards opening, we don't seem to be in a path for most of the counties to continue past the moderate stage right now. In fact, I would presume that almost every county is going to remain in moderate for quite some time now. Yavapai Cochise might move into minimal in the next, by Thanksgiving maybe, but that really depends on what the direction of the pandemic looks like. But essentially, our steps in reopening we are going to be stuck in this sort of moderate category for a while, until we get down to about 10 per 100,000. And that's sort of what minimal is that 10 per 100,000. And it's going to be a while to get there.
Garrett, let me ask you this. I've been kind of watching the news over the weekend, and a lot of the national and international news has been the resurgence of COVID and the concerns out of Europe in particular. I know India's numbers have been terrible, and it seems like they are really getting hit with the second wave that we've been worried about and warned about. And if you take a look at the first wave, it seemed like they were, I don't know, this is me kind of guesstimating it, but they were maybe a month ahead of New York, and then New York was hit really badly, and then it kind of moved to the west. Is that something you think we would be anticipating happening here? So if it's hitting Europe now, then a second wave could be hitting the East Coast potentially, in, say, I don't know, 3 to 6 weeks or something like that. Is that something that we should be on the lookout for?
I think that's plausible. There's some plausibility there. I don't think it's going to come into New York this time. If this is all an if, of course, it's, we're sort of speculating, but if things are going to occur in sort of waves, they're definitely going to follow sort of behavior patterns. If it starts in India, it could go back into somewhere in Asia, and then it's going to transit over across the Atlantic, or the Pacific to us. And then, but it's going to have, there's so much less air travel going on internationally right now. It's just not going to spread as fast as it did in, say, New York. just simply because there's just not the volume that there was back in March. But that definitely seems to be the pattern when you look at sort of the epidemiological articles talking about these things and how this thing transits. That seems to definitely be a pattern. Is that sort of from either that sort of Middle Asia area to Europe and then to the United States, similar to that. It's just, I think it's because of our isolation, across the bodies of water, if you will, that we're going to be the last to show up at.
And then the other one I wanted to hit you with, and I'm not sure this is something that you can dig into the data for, but I'm just curious if you've seen this or can speak to it a little bit, is the different strains of coronavirus that are popping up now in different parts of the country, and how that's impacting the numbers we're seeing at all.
And there's not a lot of really digestible data on the different strains is really something that's easy to wrap your arm around. I mean, I've looked at it, and sometimes when you look at the graphs that they put together, it's like, wait, what? I can barely, it's so difficult to watch how they do it. It's very interesting how they sort of match these mutations and see what these mutations are doing and where they're coming from, and sort of try to isolate the origins of each of these strains of the virus. But of the articles that I have read in this respect, it does appear that in several places in the United States, we do have sort of a less strong version of the strain of COVID-19 hitting some places. That's why, say, for example, possibly, this is all possibly in Arizona, for example, our death rate is pretty low. And there's some other places where the death rate is very low compared to even the case rate that they have, compared to where it was back in March,
Right.
and in some other places in the world.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back into our numbers. So get out of the world for just a moment.
Yeah.
Come back
Yeah.
to Arizona. You talked about some of the numbers are creeping up just a tiny bit. Can you go through those numbers that you're seeing a little bit of creep on?
Yeah, let's go through some of the creep numbers. We'll talk about the hospitalizations first, because we are seeing sort of slight increases in the hospitalizations. I'm going to stick around just with the COVID-like illness, or excuse me, no. I am going to start with the COVID-like illness numbers. I just said that, so I'm going to start with it. This is the first time since 14 weeks that we've seen an increase in the COVID-like illness inpatient numbers. Still very, very low. It only went from 2.8 to 2.7 to 2.8, but the governor does like to highlight this number as being something that's been shrinking for several weeks now, and this is the first time we've actually had an increase here. So, and these are calculated every Sunday. So that's what we've seen. Now we're going to go to the hospital-like numbers here. You can see these are the inpatient numbers, just the general hospital beds, and you can see, even though it sort of goes up and down, that up and down pattern is going in an upwards direction at this point. Every time it sort of swells, it swells a little bigger than it did the week before. ICU numbers, they've been a pretty sustained pattern going up. They were at their lowest on 925, somewhere around there, and now they're at 134. So just a slight increase there, but sustained most definitely. And then emergency room department visits. This one's a little difficult because you can see we have a data break here. We had a hospital system that was wasn't reporting their numbers properly. So we have this break here that looks like a drop in emergency room numbers, but it's artificial. So unfortunately, there's not enough data here to really truly establish a trend with emergency room departments yet. So.
Okay. How about when we break down by age? Because as the schools have started reopening now, and I know it's fall break for a lot of kids right now, but some of the younger kids and some of the districts did go back prior to the fall break, and then I know a lot of kids are going to be going back after the fall break from the middle school and the high school ages. But can you break out the age groups that we're seeing and how it's looking per age group?
So as far as the age groups go, we were talking last week that the less than 20 and the AZDHS numbers have gone from 13 to 14%, because as we were adding these college cases And also these congregate settings, because, you know, some of these places, these jails, you know, they do have people that are obviously incarcerated or in jail that are under the age of 20. So, you know, these numbers started to increase. They're at 14% now, a little over 30,000, 30,245 are the numbers right now. And although we are seeing a slowing down of those demographics increases, today, for example, none of the age groups stood out as far as having a higher number. So that this is, again, a good thing. We don't want to see we want to see an equal distribution of age groups. We don't want to see one age group, you know, spreading faster than the others, especially the younger ones, because the younger ones tend to spread to more people. We never want to see it with the older people, but at least if that happens, it's usually just a one and done as far as the number that we're given. It's just, you know, it might increase by like 0.5%, and then the next day it's going to be 0.1% because they tested a long-term care facility or something like that.
Right. When you track, especially when you track the percent positives, and, you know, you know, I'll call it wiggles a little bit each day sometimes, but what would be a red flag to you that, as we see these and hear about these every day?
If we were to have I think a red flag on percent positives, that's a great question. We haven't had one yet that I can tell. We've had some very high numbers in the rural counties. Like today, for example, Graham tested, I think it was 46% positive in Graham County, but it was only with 15 tests. So it was definitely targeted testing. So they had a group of people that, like, we're pretty sure that these people have COVID because they came into a clinic or they were at some sort of facility. So of course the percent positive is going to be sky high in that case. But Maricopa County numbers are still going down. I think if I were to say we were looking for a red flag, and this is not a great graph, I was actually spending a little time today to try to figure out how to get a better one. But say, for example, Maricopa County, you could see 4%, 4%, 4%. If we break it out to the dailies, which is very hard to see, but you can see all of these numbers. We're not seeing any sort of sustained increases in the percents right now. I would say 4 or 5 days of increasing percent positives from 4 to 5% could be something that would be a red flag, but we're just not seeing that right now. So like I said, we've seen more testing. The more testing has led to more cases, but we're not seeing an increase in the positivity rate, a slight increase in the positivity rate, very slight, but really, really slight. So and that's because of a lot of those congregate field testings that they were doing.
Yeah. Talk a little bit as well as, Heather, I see your question there. Is there a recommended location or entity for testing that's the most accurate, a type of testing perhaps, that is shown to be the most accurate? Gary, can you speak to that?
Well, accuracy is, I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, and there's a lot of complexities with these tests. So as far as accuracy is concerned, so the PCR test, I've heard people, you know, the PCR test can be very, very accurate because it's using molecular enhancement to figure out, and it's very hard to get a false positive as far as the traces of the virus when you're doing molecular enhancement. But the problem with that PCR positive is it can detect the virus in some cases, you know, 3-4 weeks after it occurred. If you amplify it long enough, it's going to find something in most people. So that could be the argument against PCR positives. The antigen test, much more rapid, but you can do it more frequently. That's kind of the good thing about the antigen test. It's less invasive. You can do it quickly. You're not going to get a false negative, there's a false negative, I believe, is what I'm trying to say. But you can do it a lot quicker. So there could be a chance that you do have the virus with a antigen test and it didn't pick it up, but it's not going to find the opposite. And you could do it multiple times. That's the good thing about it. You know, the PCR test, you take it, it's really invasive and obnoxious, and it takes, you know, 3 days to get the results back. This one, you get it back in an hour. So you can check yourself every 3 or 4 days or something like that and just have a better idea of what's going on.
Yeah, and certainly I think as things open up a bit more and a bit more, that's going to be so critical, because as people, you know, try and move around the country and certainly try and you know, hopefully travel eventually and do all the things that we all love to do, you know, being able to access those tests and have those tests and get the results back quickly is going to be critically important. Let's talk a little bit, Gary, about
Thank you, Kimberly. It was antigen won't give you a false positive. She's correct. I was like, I kept saying false negative, and I'm like, no, I think it's false positive.
Thank you.
Thank you. It won't give you a false positive. Yes.
Let's talk about just the volume of tests being taken by people and the volume of test results coming back. Like you touched on this a little while ago, but kind of give us the state overview, and then obviously I would think Maricopa County, just by virtue of the population, is where most of the testing is being done. But are we seeing a consistent level of testing? Is it going up? Is it going down? What's kind of going on? I know the universities, we touched on this a little bit, but more broadly than the universities, what's going on with the volume of testing?
Let's see if I can get this. So the volume of testing has been very interesting. Let me actually just do it this way. It'll be easier to do it this way. I'm just going to render it. It was slightly increasing. It's starting to slightly decrease again. That has a lot to do with the addition of the antigen tests. But there was a lot of backfilling going on too. That was the other thing that was kind of causing our numbers to get really wonky about 2 weeks ago, is that we were finding 1,000 cases, but 600 of those cases happened in July. So let me show you what the curve looks like. I'll use my numbers for this one. There we are. And there we go. Oh, hold on. I'll get to it. It's coming. Come on, baby. All right, there we go. So this is the testing. And you can see this is what we're talking about. Very high number of testing at the sort of the beginning of late June, early July. And then it sort of leveled off right here in August to September. Huge drop right here. And then we started doing the university testing right here, which picked back up to where we were in August. And now we're seeing a decrease right here in the last week or so. And that's sort of the roller coaster ride we've been on with testing for the past several weeks. We're going to see what happens, obviously, with testing coming up and see if it levels out. Oftentimes, the tail right here of these averages are a little more aggressive. Like this one says it's going down, but in the next couple of days, it may be a little bit more level. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of days to see if that stays that aggressively going down or if it levels out.
Yeah. We talked a little, again, focusing on Maricopa County for a moment. We talked about the area around ASU,
Yes.
parts of Tempe, parts of Mesa there. You talked a little bit about a little bit of concern for the Southwest Valley. Any other parts of kind of the Greater Valley area that you're looking at that in any way seem unusual to you, both either positive or negative?
Well, I will say that when we went over this last Thursday, when this data, and this is the zip code map, when we looked over this last Thursday, we saw increases in nearly every zip code in Maricopa County, which is very unique and rare, but we were seeing this. Like, for example, I just picked up a random zip code, 85234, 16 cases per 100 last about 3 weeks ago, and it went to 36 cases. So it effectively doubled. And I can do that with almost every, here's one that it didn't happen on, 85022, 13 cases this week, but it was 24 per capita last week. So there's an exception to what seems to be the rule. Here's another one, 32 this week, 16 last week, 42, 33, 33, 20 last week. And sort of we can see this pattern sort of emerge in most of these places. And it seems to be like Queen Creek, for example, the East Valley. A lot of interesting numbers coming out of the East Valley. East Valley was at one point, there was nothing going on in the East Valley. And all of a sudden, our cases per 100 went from, like, for example, in 85142, it went from 20 2 weeks ago to 61 this last week. Wow. So, and we see this everywhere in the East Valley, sort of the deep East Valley. We saw some pretty dramatic increases in that area that we typically don't see in the East Valley. Increases everywhere. Southwest Arizona, my school skips 39th and 85009. So I know I just read that really quick and it made no sense. 85009. This is actually a right here. This zip code is hybrid right now. You can see it did increase. It almost doubled, like many of the other zip codes in Maricopa County, 25 to 48. And the thing with this zip code, though, to always remember is that I believe 85009 also has the Lower Buckeye jail facility in it, and it's so those numbers in that Lower Buckeye complex, the prison complex, is going to increase the 85009 numbers dramatically, but still pretty good numbers out of there. And so we've seen some increases in places of the valley. I'd say this last week, the increases were worse on the east than they were on the west side of the valley, which is different.
Okay, and where in the East Valley, particularly? I know you talked, you kind of touched on some of them. Let's head up to like Northeast Valley for a while and see what's going on there.
So in the Northeast Valley, definitely a lot less increases, but still some increases. It's not doubling like it is in the Southeast Valley. So this is 85254. I believe that's somewhere like near McCormick Ranch, and it's 39 cases per 100 a couple of weeks ago, and now it's 59. And then you come up a little farther north, and it was at 12, and now it's at 37. So that essentially that tripled. And then you go to like Shea Corridor right here, 43 a couple of weeks ago to 56. And you come up even farther, 85024. This actually went down 15 this week to 26. So you see there are some interesting numbers. This one right here, 85262, slight increase, 44 to 59. So the Northeast Valley, there's likely not as many zip codes in the Northeast Valley that have either doubled or tripled in their per capita rates than there are in the Southeast Valley. But you have to remember, zip codes are not proportionally, they're not distributed proportionally. So some of these zip codes have a lot of people in them, and some have very little people in them.
Marla, kind enough to write in here. Can you check 85208 for her here?
85208. It has about doubled. 13 to 31 is where this zip code went.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Any other spots that jump out at you?
In Maricopa County, I would say no, not right now. I have to do a more comprehensive look at Maricopa County, but I would just say, we did experiencing a lot of leveling off, but there were certainly some increases in Maricopa County here and there. Tempe, I'd say if anything stuck out at me, it's that Tempe, it's the numbers are going down around Tempe. They're not necessarily going down as far as numbers themselves. They're still going from 16 to 32 in some cases, but these numbers were so insanely high about 3 weeks ago that going from 16 to 32, it was at 180 a couple weeks ago. So I mean, the numbers around ASU have definitely shrunk.
Yeah. Hey Garrett, let me go. I don't want to so focus so heavily on Pima that we did earlier in Maricopa. I want to take a wider look at the state if we can. And you had mentioned, and I wanted to circle back to that. When you talk about northern Arizona and especially the areas in the Navajo Nation and everything that have been hit so terribly earlier with this, how are their numbers looking?
So
Navajo tribal land, yeah.
So the Navajo tribal land, unfortunately, we don't have much mapping that we can do with the Navajo tribal land. But what I can say is that, they were one of the hardest hit, and then things look really good, and they have been looking very good since then. But they are experiencing slight increases right now. Let's see if I can pull them up on my spreadsheet really quick. That's other tribal. So like, for example, back on the middle of September, they were adding on average about 11 new cases a day. And they were going down, every day they were dropping 20%, 30%, 40%. And now they're at 21 cases. The average is 21 cases a day. And they're sort of hovering between the red and the green as far as sometimes a week they'll add more cases than they did the previous week, and sometimes it'll be a little less. But again, it's only going to be a little. It's going to be like 10% less or 10% more. So they're sort of leveled off as well at around 20-something cases average per day right now, which is much better than they used to be, but still.
Yeah. And how about Yavapai County? We haven't talked about Yavapai County really. How are they looking?
Yavapai County is one of the better counties that we've dealt with. Let me go to, I'm just going to look at them really quick and this is actually a great place for people to look for counties. This is probably the last thing we can do because we're running out of time. Yeah. But this one here, let me share this really quick. This is the COVID Act Now. It shows the RT number for all of the counties. Great little resource not that. Great little resource to look at, and you can see where all the counties are. This is the infection rate that it presumes in each of the counties. Yavapai County is at a 1.01 right now. So Yavapai County is mirroring the state. Maricopa County is also at a 1.01.
Yep. All right. Sounds great. So if you want to give us one last kind of quick summary idea or headline as you take a look at all these numbers from today, what would you say it would be?
I'd say the next 14 days are going to be pretty crucial to where Arizona's headed.
All right. So everybody take care of yourselves out there, and, take care of your family, take care of your neighbors, and think about our community in terms of what your are, and hopefully we can keep these numbers down and keep Arizona on the right trajectory. Garrett, I thank you for letting me join you today.
Thank you, Faye.
And I think I'm with you one more time tomorrow. So hopefully everybody can bear with me for one more day. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll wrap it up for now.